Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Practical Rehearsal and Practice Applications for MakeMusic Cloud. My name is Caitlin Rydell, and I'll be running everything in the background for our session today. So let's get things started. I'm pleased to introduce today's presenter. Rachel Maxwell currently serves as the Director of Bands at Trauber Junior High School, School District 308 in Oswego, Illinois. She has taught music education courses at Vandercook College of Music in Chicago and North Central College in Naperville, Illinois. And she serves on the editorial review board of NAFME's Teaching Music magazine. Mrs. Maxwell has degrees from Illinois State University, the University of Illinois, and Aurora University. She's currently a Doctor of Musical Arts candidate at Boston University, a multiple-year nominee for the Music Educator Grammy Award, a 5-time recipient of the National Band Association Citation of Excellence, and a recipient of the Chicagoland Outstanding Music Educator Award. Rachel, thanks so much for being with us today.
Hello. Thank you for having me here. The most important thing to know about me is that I am a practitioner. I'm a junior high director. I've taught all different levels, but junior high is really where my heart is at. And young bands, developing bands who, I'm not saying that this webinar is only for those band directors, but it really helps us get kids started the right way when we can use all the tools available to us. So I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to do my screen share here with all of you. All right. So nothing I say today is going to be really, it's all ideas that you'll probably have thought about or thought like, how can I do more of this? And I'm just going to share with you things that we have come across that have helped us immensely increase the efficiency of our rehearsals, increase understanding of where the students are at so we can pace things correctly, and also help our students understand how to read music properly. That was one of my biggest discoveries and my biggest things I love about smart music, and we'll talk about that more. But as I said, that's my bio I have about myself. I'm at Trauber Junior High, teach bands 6 through 8. We start our kids in 6th grade. And we have a really great schedule. So I understand my situation is not the same as what everybody's situation is, but we have grade level bands. We do have our beginners split into 3 different groups, and they start in 6th grade every day. So that gives you just a little bit of my background. We can talk more about how we've adjusted things over the years. I'm an old-timey, from back in the olden days, smart music person, pretty hardcore for about 15 years. So how I've used it has evolved immensely, and that's something I'll address as well. But let's jump in. The first thing I want to talk about is ensemble and sectional rehearsals. Most people I talk to use smart music as an assessment tool, which obviously that's lovely. That's how I started using it. But I found its real power is in how we run our rehearsals and our sectionals. That's where we get the most bang for our buck, really, and really get the most tread on it. So I'm going to jump in, but I'm going to give you my one tip that is worth your time. This one is worth the price of admission, and it took me a long time. I'm kind of embarrassed how long I didn't do this, but we have gotten much better about saving our pages. So when I open up something in Smart Music, I now save it to my, tab bar, and I've created folders. So it's very efficient and fast. And so we'll have like a warm-up folder, we use different accounts for what we use in class, but we have like a warm-up folder, and then we have one for each grade. I primarily lead 6th and 8th grade, so that's why you're seeing these 6th and 8th grade folders. And this is a game changer. So if you have tabs that you frequently revisit in your smart music, save it and then organize it. For instance, like if my percussionists are on 7.3, I click on that, and then however far we get, then that's the new tab I save. So I know it just opens right up the next day. So that's my little band director hack for the day for you. All right, so let's jump into warm-ups, what we do. We do rhythm sets almost every day, and we use them a couple different ways. I project them up on the board as just stagnant sheets of rhythm sets I found, just different things I've bought off Teachers Pay Teachers. We also like to use the ones that are loaded into Smart Music, and I'm sorry, I'll probably slip and call MakeMusic Cloud Smart Music because I've been with it for a long time. But we always project our rhythms, no matter what capacity we're using it, because I want the kids to understand the cursor movement across the rhythm. So they understand how to pace their eye, the rate of counting, just the flow of the music. It really helps them understand how to read so they don't get hung up. I find most mistakes happen with kids when their eye is in the wrong place in the music. And by using the cursor set to follow note, which is my favorite, we really help the kids understand how to move their eye across the musical line and to pace themselves. So whether it's with a rhythm set, the other function I like to use is this little program called Rhythm Bee. Now that's a separate subscription. I encourage you to go and check that out. It's a person in Texas developed this, and it's a big game changer. When we use the Rhythm Bee program, we come back to rhythm sets loaded into Smart Music. The kids have a really strong understanding of rhythmic elements. The next thing we do is we always do a scale or a scale pattern, especially when we're in our sectionals. I team teach, so we do not have sectionals outside of the school day, but when we break up in class and send a little group out, we will definitely go through like the scale of the week. All of our kids go through all 12 major scales. The beginners do a reduced scale that goes up to a fifth, so they do go through all the keys. And of course, we're doing our chromatic scales, and then the older kids get into the minor scales. But I really think it's important to have it on the screen so that they can see what they're looking at, where they're at. We can go through the application of the key signature and make that very clear to them. I also do scale grids that are on my website that I can share out, where it helps the kids understand where they are in the scale, because it's a grid that's identified by block letter notes. And that also helps the kids learn how to do some transposition pretty intuitively. We rotate who gets up on the screen. Sometimes they request, like it's karaoke, I tell them. They'll beg, like, put our part up, put our part up. So we just take turns of whose part's on the screen and whose part is being read out of their workbook or from paper handouts. We also do a lot of lip slurring and technique exercises. So if we're warming up with Smart Music, it's always up on the board. Students have their own copy of the workbook, but I do like to rotate and hear different sections play one at a time and have the rest of the kids follow along with what they're doing up on the screen. And it really gives them an understanding of what they're listening to and looking at and how they connect. And it removes them from the technicalities of this thing that they're trying to operate. And they can have a chance to hear their peers, hear what I'm hearing. We talk a lot about the quality of the sound, etc. But obviously every kid has their own copy, but then we take turns of who we're projecting. I'm a big John McAllister music fangirl. His site is spectacular, and it really seamlessly blends in with what we do with Smart Music and the other elements we put online on our screen. Pretty much everything we do in rehearsals up on the screen. Very little is handed out. We have some scale sheets and such and fingering charts and that, but we try to get up on the screen, and his warm-ups are spectacular. We start them with our baby beginners, and they go up through appropriate for high school. And I like it because he has an accompaniment, which is also a strength of using MakeMusic. There's a drone, so the kids start centering and matching and sustaining. It provides an exemplar for them to play along with. So if you have not explored johnmcallistermusic.com, that's a phenomenal site. It's all free. I send him a nice donation every once in a while because he does such good work. But that integrates really seamlessly into any other kind of warm-up you're doing. And by doing those, you click start and they have a whole page of warm-ups. It allows me to wander around the room, problem solve. Who's got a pencil? What do you need? Your instrument doesn't work. What are you doing? Let's check that embouchure out. It's silly for me to conduct a warm-up or count off a warm-up when there's so many things that are preloaded, whether you use it out of a workbook or a website like this. This is one of my favorites. We use this in warm-up, but we also use it periodically when we're playing, and we even use it with our little beginners. They have their own tuners. We have the little Korgs and the clip-on mics. But when I project it on the screen, up at the front of the room, there's a level of accountability that comes with that. And we'll go down the line, check everybody's tuning. The kids get a kick out of it if they hit the, right in the center. A lot of people will use the smiley face tuning app with that as well. But I like this because it's so simple and it helps us train our kids up on what is in tune. What is it, if I'm, 10 cent sharp, I can see that I'm 10 cent sharp. What does that sound like compared to being in tune? And we're finding that the kids get really quite good at identifying if they're in tune, flat, sharp, and how much by having the tuner up on the board as they're listening. And it helps them gain their confidence that, okay, what I'm hearing is flat, what I'm hearing is sharp, and how much do I need to adjust? And we just find that the kids are a little bit more careful with their adjustments if we have it on the screen because everyone can see and hear. And we never make it punitive, obviously. It's always done in a very constructive, positive way. But that using that tuner up on your screen is just really fast and a really great way to quickly be checking in on your kids' tuning. We also will use it where we'll isolate something in the music. We'll stop, freeze a chord. I use Harmony Director extensively. That's a whole nother clinic that I do. But for quick checks, particularly with the younger students, our beginners and our 7th graders, just having this tab open and being able to check parts of the chord or check their unisons or their fifths with the tuner so they can see what I'm hearing and then connect those things. Another thing we like to do is we put the screen up, we project it onto the whiteboard, and then I can take my dry eraser and I can write on top of what's being projected onto the board. That's like from old-fashioned overhead days. So we'll do that sometimes if it's beneficial to the kids, or I'll have the kids come up and write things in. Somebody like change this rhythm or write in the articulations, add dynamics, or can you identify those things? So particularly with a smaller group, that's really effective to be able to let them write on the whiteboard of what we're projecting. Moving into method books, and I know I'm talking really fast because I got a lot of slides to get through, but as we're going, like we said, if you have a question or comment, put it in the chat, and then we'll do little breaks where we can catch up with those things. So our method books, we, again, always project it up on the large screen, and we do have a really nice, large screen that everybody can see easily. And I have a sight reading checklist that I'll go through in a second here, and we physically take the kids through that sight reading checklist with the sample on the board. We point out every element. We identify the tricky parts, isolate the tricky parts, show them some technique things, isolate obviously rhythms. Explaining the roadmap is a game changer when you're using this because they can follow the cursor to see that first ending and then jump back to the beginning. And how do you jump over the second ending? That has made teaching full band music, particularly to the beginners, so much easier. They can understand, like, okay, see the map, understand how it works, that sort of thing. But we teach those things in the method book, obviously, because the method books are all designed to isolate those elements as we go. So what I like to do is when we put a method book exercise up, I have everybody in the room watch it. For instance, my brass classes, beginners are all one class. So I'll say, okay, I have the low brass up on the board. So even trumpets, cornets, watch this as well as we explain all these elements. And then I will ask them, can you now look at your own book and identify these parts? Maybe do a turn and talk or a partner share with your neighbor and go through our checklist. And it's very simple. It's the old fashioned, I think it's out of Essential Elements originally, the STARS checklist. And we make the kids walk through each of these elements each time. And, and I have like the pointer and everything, and we identify all those parts. And then we talk through sharps and flats, identify the notes that will be, affected, go through, what does that time signature mean? Can we count it? Identify, we call them taco notes. The accidental carries over. So find our tacos, because most people love tacos, so we don't want to ignore the tacos. We can clap or count or sizzle through rhythms, and then obviously showing them signs and symbols. Usually then what I'll do is I'll have the kids maybe counter or sizzle the rhythm, and we'll have it play on the screen. Then I'll have them either look at the screen or look at their own book and say their note names as it plays, and usually at a very reduced tempo. And then we'll go through and finger and say notes. And just today I did all these steps and then had the brass buzz through it. And I also reinforced it a lot of times with the harmony director notes, doubling it so they can really hear the pitches. And then if it's not too hard, we'll go through the whole thing, or we might play it 1 or 2 bars at a time to chunk it and then put it back together, because it takes a significantly longer amount of time for kids to unlearn or relearn mistakes than it does to do it right the first time. So all these reps are building myelin in the brain. It's developing that muscle coordination, that muscle memory, and they're not learning mistakes. So we really control like how we're going through things. Just really quick, if anybody has ideas that you use for your warm-ups, your method books, ideas, questions, anything you want to share in the chat, we don't have to stop, but if anybody has an idea or a thing they want to share that they use it for, that'd be great to share out right now. Anybody has anything?
Yes, please don't be shy, guys. We are super curious to hear everybody's point of view. And, you don't have to talk or put yourself on the screen, but we would love to hear your ideas in the chat.
Or just, if you want to just observe now and think about it later, that's okay too. We don't want anybody on the spot. Do we have a question in there? I'm not going to change screens because I'm too scared to open up the chats, because then, of course, I'll be in this technology black hole where I can't get back to my screen. So anything worth it for us stopping for right now?
Well, we did get somebody, and I think maybe they would like to speak.
Yeah.
I would love to hear from them. Ted, would you like to tell us?
There are several wonderful warm-up exercises inside of MakeMusic Cloud. First of all, Foundation series, I would highly recommend that everybody take a look at those, especially the last one that Brian Balmage has just put out, Villainous Foundations. And there's some other ones in there, blockbuster long tones, indie lip slurs, which they do get a little bit more complicated, so I have to have an advanced player for the last ones, but everyone, including a beginner, could do the very first one that's in there. So there's a lot of resources, and then there's several movie soundtracks tied in with sound innovations. So I love to use all of those in various forms.
And I would agree. My problem with warm-ups, like fundamental type exercise and things, is I get and it's been years and years I've done this, very overwhelmed with the amount of resources. So it's really been a challenge for me when I see all these good things, like Brian just came out with, he always shares all these great, amazing warm-ups with these great backgrounds and soundtracks, and trying to not be overwhelmed, to say, okay, I can't do them all the time. So kind of differentiate and decide, like, okay, what's going to be best for me and my kids, but definitely exploring what's preloaded in there and available is, you're going to find the right thing that your kids like and that meet the needs of your kids. This is just what we happen to use. And I hope it spurs some ideas for you to like take this and then explore what works for your community and your students, obviously. Okay, now this is where I think it really pays off for us. Using concert repertoire. For our 6th graders, I really make a big effort to make sure that the concert rep I pick for the first time they concert. Oh, well, I'll tell you this really quick. For our first concert, we do it all out of the workbook, but I set up speakers on the stage and they play along with the accompaniment in the MakeMusic Cloud in the workbook. And the kids and parents enjoy that first band concert so much more, because then everything sounds like music. It doesn't, the kids are playing whole notes or very simple things, but they have these great accompaniments, and we just have the click track on. Nobody thinks anything. They think it's great. And the kids have more real, like, hearty music to play than just hearing them play their whole notes and such, which I did for years and years. So that first concert our 6th graders do in October is just workbook using the smart music background. And then they do concert music in December. In March, we just went to contest on Saturday with the beginners, and then a May concert. And I work really hard to pick literature that's in the MakeMusic Cloud for them for a number of reasons. One, so I can teach it to them in the ways I'm going to show you. Two, so that we can do a really controlled guided practice in how we set up their preparation of that music. Three, it helps them understand the music much better and how their part fits in. And they have a lot more fun practicing songs that they can play along with the accompaniment. They'll just go in the practice room. I hear them cluster little friends. They'll turn on one kid's Chromebook and then they all play along with it. Now, 7th grade, at the beginning of the year, again, we do a lot of music that's already available. And then as the year progresses, we kind of select music that's the best fit for the group, but I like to keep it in MakeMusic if possible. And then in 8th grade, as I find something that's super independent or has a lot of technical challenges, if I find out it's in the MakeMusic Cloud, I'm thrilled, because then I can break it down into practice chunks. I can slow down those tempos. It's just a really strongly guided practice sessions for those kids. And it's funny because the kids, as all humans do, will complain to us a little bit about their, things that they have to turn into us. But as soon as they find out a piece is or is not already loaded into MakeMusic, they have a very strong reaction. Like right away, they want to know, is this in Smart Music? And if I say yes, they feel very relieved because they feel like it will help them learn it. And if it's not, they're kind of like, oh my gosh, it's the Wild West. What are we going to do? They don't realize they have the tools already kind of getting embedded to learn music without the aid of the program. But it's interesting, the attitude of the kids has they've really embraced it as far as learning music. So some things I recommend people do is when you're using it, use it in your rehearsal, like with the actual whatever the configuration is. Now my rehearsals, like say I'm with my 8th graders. I have a brass class and then I have a woodwind percussion class. And that's because the band is at least 100 kids. So I don't want 100 kids in band at the same time. So we break them up by sections for pedagogical reasons. And things I like to do, I always have the metronome on. I'm a metronome junkie, usually with that subdivision rolling. I always use note cursor so that they're understanding how the ratio of note movement to time. And then the kids are very familiar with using the loop element, because we will chunk and repeat sections, and then everything starts slow, and then we'll bump as needed as we move things up. So those are some basic settings we use. Now, again, I rotate which instrument is on the screen, but I also physically rotate where the kids sit. I like to leave just a big chunk of the front row open. We kind of have an unusual setup where I've got sections I can walk through, like I leave aisles so I can walk through, but we leave that front row kind of open, so then I can say, tubas, come sit up front. I'm going to put your part up on the screen today for the section that is a little hairy. Let's put that on there and see. So they'll bring their music and set it on there, but they're using the screen to acclimate themselves with the relationship of their part to the other parts. And then I'll say, okay, this time play it off your music. You're still missing that one count. Let's go back to Smart Music on the screen. I want you to stay on the screen. Now they might play it alone, and then they'll play it with the band accompanying them. But I ask everyone in the room to follow the part that's on the screen while that group plays it, and then compare their parts to what they see in here on the screen to see where parts are fitting inside or together and what relationship they have with that music. And it really helps the kids understand their musical role in the ensemble and just the vertical alignment of things, the harmonic alignment. And they don't necessarily understand that those are the names of the things they're learning, but they learn how the parts fit together and work together. And it creates a lot of confidence when it's time, to just play it in a traditional setting. Okay, so like I said, only the screen part sometimes will play, and I'll have the accompaniment play with them. I'll take the accompaniment off and everybody will play just the screen part. All sorts of variations you can do. But every student teacher I've had or person I work with as my co-director is kind of like, oh, why have I never done this before to help my kids learn how their parts fit into the music? Sectionals, again, it's really useful for isolating, but then hearing how their part fits in. Woodwinds can hear how brass and percussion and vice versa. Since I have my kids in 2 different sections, like we went to contest Saturday and we had one rehearsal on Wednesday after school, had our concert Thursday, and then went to contest. And a lot of people are like, how do you even put them together? Well, because they understand how their part fits by hearing and playing along with and practicing with the accompaniment parts. So they understand what's going on. The loop feature I like to use, especially with the littles, the beginners. And one of the things we found is if we're looping something and it's getting there, but it's time for a little check-in, we might go down the line because it does that four counter, however you want to do it, click off in between takes. So we'll do like a little 2-bar or 4-bar or 1-bar section or a bar and a half, whatever we need to. And I'll be like, let's all play it. Okay, this time you, boom, 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 play. Then we all play it. Then the next kid, then we all play it. Then the next kid, or I'll play with them, or I'll take a turn, they play a turn. But it's really great for check-ins of individual parts. And I might do like you 3 play, then we rest, then you 3 play, then you 2. Let's hear this section. And you can really do a lot of really powerful formative assessment and understand where your kids are in a way that's a little less scary than if the room's dead silent and they're just like, okay, go. That click, they get in the rhythm of it. It also shows you what's their pulse. Are they understanding the timing? Are they are they matching? There's a lot of things you can hear if you just do like a quick down the line and make it as little threat as possible. We try to make it very like they're showing off. And if somebody's scared or freaking out, especially the beginners, I play along with them. And then if they do okay, I'd be like, okay, this time you do it by yourself. And it moves really fast. I try to hear, we've got like 56 in our beginner brass class, and I try to hear everybody play something alone every day so I can see how they're doing. Again, if anybody has other ways you use this for your concert repertoire and you want to share out with us, I'd love to steal your ideas because I use this every day for all of my bands. And if you have anything that you want to share for how you use it in your rehearsal with your rep, that would be great. I'm going to keep going because I don't want to run out of time. Or if you're thinking of questions, we'll definitely have time at the end too. All right, so we do testing with the program, but we really approach a lot of our assignments as guided practice, where let's say if a student scores somewhere in the high 80s or 90s, we're going to give them full credit for it because I want their practice sessions to be very intentional, very focused, and very isolated in what they do so that they develop good habits and actually improve what they're doing instead of just running through something endlessly, as I did as a small child. I think all the time, if I had this, I could be a famous French horn player right now. But, oh, well, it worked out. So here's how, like, say I have my 6th grade class. So what I'll do is I'll assign with the 6th graders, the beginners, I'll assign maybe a whole page for the week, 3, 4, 5 assignments. And we'll expect the kids to complete them all as their practice for the week. But we'll select one of those things that we feel is really meaningful, really shows all the concepts pulled together. And that might be the one that we put in as a grade book entry. So we set the expectation that you are supposed to prepare all these things. I'm going to pick one of them, or maybe your best grade of the batch is what's going to go in. And we don't necessarily put every single grade in the grade book of the things we set up for the kids to work on. We also coach them and their parents that if you're practicing for more than 10 or 15 minutes at a go and you're getting frustrated, stop, put it away. We intend for our practice sessions to be between 5 and 15 minutes, and maybe a couple times a week, because the reality is kids have a lot going on. So I want them to maximize the time that they practice, not feel like it's just busy work, and then move on to other things that they want to do. And if they want to keep practicing, that's great. But I don't want it to be a burden or reason why a child doesn't want to do band, right? So we've even built them short enough and small enough that a lot of kids will come in during lunch and get them done, and then they're good to go for the week. And that's been really helpful for us. But some rules that I follow for myself is I always reduce the tempo. anywhere between 80 down to 60. I want it slow because that's how I want them to practice. I take away any unnecessary repeats. I take the accompaniment off, particularly with the beginners, so that they are not being distracted by that. We have time to add that later. I want them to focus on their parts. I also will
And
click it.
Rachel,
Yes.
we did get a message from Brian in the chat that says, I'm just starting to use MakeMusic, so everything's new to me.
Oh, awesome. I love that. Okay, so well, here's a bunch of ideas. And here's the thing too, if anybody feels like you're new to this and you're overwhelmed, and sometimes it's not, there's lots of tutorial videos and I've watched all those, but please feel free to reach out to me and we could like set up a time or email or talk. I am more than happy to like talk to somebody individually about their individual situation and what their goals are, and then help generate ideas about how this might be useful for you, because everybody's schedule is a little different, everybody's community is a little different. But I'm more than happy if this makes your life easier and makes one more kid like being in band, then I will give you the time and help you out with that. So that's awesome. But so as I'm setting up the method books, when you have your options of what to click, I always allow their parts, because when they're recording, we have them record with headphones, so it's picking up just them. But I really want that exemplar guide playing with them for them to match, because I can tell in rehearsal if somebody's counting wrong or putting the wrong finger and help them at that moment. But if they're doing it wrong over and over on their own, they're not correcting that. And necessarily they'll see the red and they'll get, frustrated or do it again and again. But I want them to have a guide to help them. We always have the metronome on, and I always have the cursor follow the note, as I said, because I want their eyes to understand the ratio of how much time each note gets within that measure or that phrase. When we do guided practice on concert repertoire, this is something that's helped us immensely. Like the beginners just played at contest, they did 3 tunes, and we did this technique to help them prepare. And one of the judges asked, can I have recordings of your band to play for my music ed class? Because they're not going to believe this is what beginners sound like. So we teach it to them in class, of course. I help them, we mark things, we annotate, I model for them, all those things. But as we're getting, and we do practice chunks, but as we get closer to really finessing the piece, we will chop up our repertoire into a lot of small chunks, between 4 and 16 measures, depending on the piece. So like we just did Canterbury Overture and McGinty, and there were 8 Canterbury Overture tests. Canterbury 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 tests. Each one was a very short chunk of music. We reduce the tempo, and in talking to students about what they want when they do smart music, they want short tests and they want slow tests, because nothing's so frustrating as you play this whole page and then you make this huge blob at the end and you got to redo all of it. That will make kids crazy and very upset with us. So okay, I got that part right. Perfect. Check. I got test number 2. Test number 3 is that one line's giving me problems. So then I have to isolate and just practice that one little chunk, the reality of how to practice. Again, we keep it really slow. In rehearsal, we'll speed it up, but when I practice it, I want it slow to them. We really spend a lot of time too teaching and using the loop feature, so kids know how to do that on their own. And we emphasize, if you're missing one measure in your test, loop that one measure 5, 6, 7 times before you go back and try to do the whole test again. Save yourself some time. If they do it, some do, some don't. This has been helpful too, is if somebody misses a performance, the alternate assignment or assessment is that we will put the full pieces into MakeMusic Cloud, and then the students who, if they have to miss a performance and it's an excused one, like they let us know ahead of time, they will just straight down record those for us. We give them a very generous score, and then the average of those will replace the concert. I've always felt that when students miss a performance, we need to give them an alternate assessment that is of the same genre. I'm not going to have a student write a paper if they miss a performance. I want it to be the same activity, and it's their music. It's they have to have a certain level of mastery over it. So that to us has been a really appropriate assessment for if a student does need to miss a performance, rather than, and we try to make it so they don't like doing that. They'd rather be at the concert. That should be the better option, but it seems fair. It's not an extraordinary punitive amount of work, because sometimes they have good reasons that they have to miss. I'm sure other people have ideas about how they use guided practice. If anybody wants to share out, even if you just want to write your idea of guided practice, please share with us.
We did get a few more in the chat as you were speaking.
Oh, go for it. What do we got in there?
Yeah, so Kathy says, my beginning students love the accompaniments in their method book. It helps them get used to reading their part while hearing the rest of the ensemble.
Yep. We do that in full class. We'll do, like, we just did a workbook assignment today, and we did it several times without it. And then I'm like, okay, are we ready for the background? And then I make up ridiculous stories about what each song means. And there's one in Tradition of Excellence that's kind of like a country barnyard, and we called it the romance chicken, that he was like checking out the lady chickens, and there's like each line then like led part of that was another part of that story, and then the kids are making up stories about it. So I mean, the accompaniments are awesome, and they think it's so fun to like sound like real music. So yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, and then we received one more from Rachel. Rachel says, I've been using MakeMusic Cloud for a while. It offers so many different ways to learn our materials. Really great.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that, because now, we just have so many ways we process things, and it's such an abstract concept, is taking notation, turning it to sound, and also doing it through this sound maker thing we have, these instruments. That's crazy. And so the if we can make something real concrete and really physical and really, that equals that sound, that equals that counting. This goes with it. That helps kids so much. It helps me. I was in an adult wind ensemble. I had to stop because my coursework was too much. But I'm going to go back to it. And we were doing, the Hindenburg Symphony and this crazy work. And I was practicing everything that was loaded into MakeMusic. I was practicing it all in there, because I'd be like, what is my part even doing? What is happening here? I play fourth horn or whatever. So trying to like figure it out for myself. I love practicing with it. It's a lot more fun. Here's another idea we have is we do solo recitals, and we haven't brought it back full charge, everybody, since the pandemic, but up through the pandemic, every single student would perform in our solo recital. And I would talk to the kids about how this is a very empowering thing and not a scary thing. And we really scaffold it so that they can easily be successful. So we use the Standard of Excellence solos because they're all loaded. They're very appropriate. The ranges are fantastic. There's obviously lots and lots and lots of material in there, so you can find what's best for you. But this is kind of how we would assign it. I like to assign solos on the easy side, because I want those solo experiences in middle school to be very, very successful and very safe, and very much I get to show off what I can do experience, rather than a frightening, oh, I might crash and burn experience, which can really stick with you for a long time if it's scary. That's scary for kids. So we do go on the easy side. And here's just some things we do. So I assign all the solos in a spreadsheet, and we assign the appropriate solo, but I assign a lot of kids to the same solo. So say I've got my, beginner clarinet class has like 35 clarinets in it. Well, I'll give, 8 kids the same solo. And so then, or in my 7th grade, band, I'll give 10 kids the same solo. So then when it's time for them to work, I'll be like, okay, who has solo number? And I number them. Who has solo 1? All right, solo 1 group is going out today. Take somebody's Chromebook. You're going to go out and you're all going to play together. Now it works that they can all play together, except the French horn books are in a different key. So they usually practice by themselves. But or my co-teacher or a student teacher can take out that group and coach everybody up on learning that solo so that we make sure that they're going to be successful. They're doing it well. We also do this, like we'll rotate in class. We'll be like, let's do solos in class today. And we put them on the screen. And then I make packets, extra packets of the books for, like, say I have the flute and saxophone class together. I'll put the flutes on the screen and the saxophones get a packet maybe of the solos. And we'll play all of them. And it's the kids try to hang, like, okay, let's start with solo 1 and play all the way through solo 8 or whichever one we have assigned. And especially with that beginning book, the first book, they get a huge kick out of trying to go as far as they can of playing all the solos. And it also makes them, I think, more empathetic and excited for their friends when it's time to actually play the solo, that they know each other's solos because they know what they're facing, they know what they're doing, they're excited for them, they know the pieces. Now, here's how we do the performance. So there's 2 grades. 1 grade is the technical grade and 1 grade is the performance grade. So we load it in to MakeMusic and have a due date like the day before the solo recital. So the kid, half their grade is like 200 points is, did you play it into MakeMusic with all the correct notes and rhythms? That's grade stands. Then they have a live grade based on composure. Did you get through it? Did you dress appropriately? Did you introduce your piece? Did you hold it together? Because I don't want fear factors, elements, performance elements to interfere with the child thinking that they're going to be successful or not. It's okay. If you need to start over, that's okay. It doesn't hurt your grade. Let's do this. How can we do this so that it's good for you? We use the smart music accompaniment, the MakeMusic accompaniment, and we have an adult in each room as a guide. And then they give a little feedback to the kids, but it's always very positive. They introduce the room. So we'll have, like, say, 4 rooms going. One will be, and they'll all be like 6:30. One will be a flute room, and there'll be like 3 6th graders, 3 7th graders, 3 8th graders, and then a clarinet room, same thing. And they all run at the same time, and everybody goes in that room together. And flute player 1 gets up, plays, flute player 2, 3, 4, and they all play different solos because I schedule them out that way. And the older kids get excited because they know the younger kids' solos, and they're very supportive. And the little kids and parents like hearing the older kids. And it's pretty supportive environment, so that the room has the other kids who are playing and then the family who wants to come in and watch. So it's more like an old-fashioned, like, piano studio recital. And like I said, as long as you don't, lose your mind and throw a stand across the room or something ridiculous during your performance, you're going to get your full points for just, approaching it correctly and being professional. And the technical element comes through then in what they're grading. And that's been really successful for us. And lots of times in class, we'll say, okay, everybody who has solo 5, stand up. We're going to play today. All right, now I want you to stand up. Now I want you guys all to come to the front of the room. Now let's do it in partners. Now let's do it singles, so that it's not shell shock to go do that solo for them. This one usually, if I tell people this idea, this usually generates a lot of ideas among people, if anyone has any.
Yeah, we did get a few.
Sure.
Actually, when you were on your very first slide for the standard of excellence solos, Erica dropped in the chat that they just took over a program that does the exact same thing, and it's really awesome.
Love that.
And
And there's
then
like all sorts of levels, I mean, if you can, however you're comfortable with it. I've just found that if I teach only like maybe 5 or 6 solos to the whole beginner clarinet class, then I know everybody can learn it. It's when you have 25 different solos that you're going to lose your mind. You don't need that much work. So go on.
Yeah, and then we have another answer from Ted that says, love the standard of excellence solos because of the scaffolded exercises that support the students' development of the technical skills they need to play their solos artfully.
100%. Yeah. And I just find those are really appropriate. They're just nice classical pieces that everyone knows. They've been edited beautifully. The accompaniments are nice. I can also play every single one of them from memory on the cornet because I've played along with them for 20 years, but they're great. And they always work. I'm going to roll just real quick into some sight reading ideas. My favorite, and I know we have the sight reading toolkit workshop I have explored that a little bit as the new feature, but my heart is with the old fashioned preloaded sight reading exercises at the different levels. I love these things. During the pandemic, to get my kids to play, I would put 5 sight reading exercises every day that they had to do. Well, it would take them 2.5 minutes because each one of them, or 5 minutes, because each one they'd have 30 seconds to sight read, look at it, and then 30 seconds to play it. And we started very, very easy. And the kids said they were kind of fun because they're easy enough that they're good at them. But we try to incorporate 1 or 2 of these into weekly assignments, and they're awesome. They start easy, they stay easy for a long time. They're leveled appropriately so that, I mean, anybody, you can start with your most baby beginners with these, and they get up pretty hard. And it's really a fast click, 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 assign. And then it's really a matter of just like, we just see, did they complete it? Did they attempt it? Is what I'm looking for, just to keep their brains fresh. So again, start easy to build confidence, weekly sight reading assignments. And then again, if you want something more difficult, you can turn anything into a sight reading assignment. In fact, when we do our teacher growth goals for our evaluations, we will put an assignment into Smart Music as a sight reading assignment, and that's our baseline score. And the kids are freaking out because they're like, I got 12%. And we're like, yes, that's what we want, because we want to show, after we work on it as a group, your growth after we've actually taught it to you. And it's usually something chromatic, because we will do the chromatic scale. But that's a great way if you need a student growth goal or you need a baseline score, turn whatever you're going to use into a sight reading exercise. There's your baseline. That's legit. What can you do? Boom, go. And then after you rehearse it and practice it, you can use your score as your growth goals. I don't know if anybody else uses the sight reading much. And I know with the new program, you can project like the full score up and have parts and such. I've explored it, but we only have a 41-minute period, so I haven't been able to dig in too hard. I think if I was on a block, I'd probably be digging into that much harder in rehearsals for us. Again, if you have ideas about sight reading, please share out. And then I just want to show this last thing. If you have a program where you see the kids like in pullouts, or your rotating sectionals or a smaller program where you can track data really carefully. This is what we did during the pandemic, is we made these banned Nintendo karates. And so we just came up with these learning targets and then levels of tasks that they had to do for each level of Nintendo. And certain things were really easy, but then we would have, like, this one is exercise 44, 46, 47, 54, and there's I can perform music using eighth notes, and then they'd have a theory worksheet and then a scale option. And as they passed off each thing and turned it into us, they would get their belt level, and we would mark down, we'd list names of who had which belts as we went. And so for our more motivated kids who didn't want to be like waiting for the rest of the class, they loved this. I mean, and like the next level was Jedi's, but I used all 3 of the Standard of Excellence books. And I had some kids, 8th graders, like finish everything. And, you're always going to have stragglers who have no interest in this. But for your kids who do want to move along at their own pace, and I'd be happy to share this out with anybody so you don't have to reinvent it. We just went through and I, found common concepts, and then found the exercises that matched, and then loaded in some pre-made Google form theory sheets. So they'd also have like a theory writing element to it. And this worked really well for us to be able to differentiate. Now, the one caveat is, at the time we shut down for COVID, I had almost 400 kids in band. So tracking this was a little stressful for me. If you have a smaller program, or you see your kids more individually at times, tracking this is a lot easier. You could actually like just do it physically and not digitally. That got to be a lot for us and that's probably why I don't use it right now. It's just too much. It's too much data tracking for me. And then I haven't even got into like the amount of data you can pull off of everything you're doing in the MakeMusic Cloud through the practicing and the charting and such. So that's a whole nother clinic. But I did want to just share out today ideas I have about how we use it in our actual rehearsals. That's way beyond just creating playing tests, because we do use it for some playing tests, but I think using it in my rehearsals has really been a game changer as my program has gotten really large. We're at 300 right now, and there is no way I'd be able to manage and hear my kids play and hold them as accountable as I do without this tool. We hear the kids live every week individually, and they have something that they have to turn in every single week to me digitally, and they have a theory thing they have to turn in every week. And without these tools, I don't think we'd be able to play the level of music we play, or have kids have as good an understanding of how their parts, the relationship of their parts, or how their music fits in and their accuracy level. So we have a few minutes, I guess. I will, and like I said, reach out. If I can help anyone individually, shoot me an email, please, and we can organize a time. I love talking about band, and I love talking about practical, like, band director hacks to help. And I feel like I kind of did all this by trial and error. So if I can help somebody make their life a little bit easier, or make their band sound a little better, or help them just be a little happier, it's a hard time right now to be a teacher. And so if there's anything that I can do to help it be a more joyful experience for you, or a more positive or productive experience, I'm very happy to help with that.